The following program is sponsored by the Today's Home Remodeler television network.
Welcome to Today's Home Remodeler. I'm Stuart Keith, and on today's show, well, we're looking at owning and maintaining a heating and cooling system. So let's get started with our heating and cooling specialist, Larry Hacker from Temperature Systems. Well, Larry, what a beautiful early autumn day and a very attractive subdivision. What brings us out here today?
Yeah, it's gorgeous here. This is a fairly new subdivision. And what we're going to be looking at today is a home that's been here 2 years now. And when we think of a new house, we're out here to actually look at the heating and cooling system and what needs to be done for normal maintenance, as well as what should be done from a professional standpoint. In a new subdivision, there's all kinds of dust and dirt and debris during the construction process, not necessarily for the house we're looking at, but what's been going on around this home all of those years. And so we're going to look at the cleaning that needs to be done to the outdoor unit. We're going to look at the things that need to be done on the indoor by a professional, but then also let's refresh what really should a homeowner be doing to make sure that their system's performing properly.
Well, that's awesome. I find it very interesting because when you think about home ownership, a lot of people, obviously, beautiful home like this, you take pride in it and you think about, yeah, I need to maintain it. Well, a lot of people think about maintaining their yard. You got to mow the lawn, you got to sweep the sidewalks, you got to keep everything clean. But what you're saying is it goes deeper than that. Part of home ownership is maintaining the mechanical systems inside, including the HVAC system.
Absolutely. You know, you pay good money for a high efficiency system. You don't want to see that efficiency declines because you didn't maintain it. And usually you see the homeowners, the first time they think about it is when it's broke. We want to be able to give them good service, good operation all of the time without ever having any issues in the future where you're going to come home to a cold house or a hot house, depending on whether it's summer or winter.
Well, like so many things, preventative maintenance is the key to long-lasting indoor air quality, that's for sure, and comfort, and that's what it's all about. So let's head inside and take a look at some things that the homeowner can do first.
Sounds good. Let's take a look a little bit about what a homeowner should be doing spring and fall as they change seasons, in addition to then what we're going to be looking at is from a maintenance standpoint, what they can do downstairs at their furnace.
Okay, so when we talk about seasonal maintenance on a system, it's really seasonal operation?
Yeah, seasonal operation for sure, and then there's many things that go along with that, and we can tee into some of the reminders that come change of season, what we should be doing as a homeowner.
Okay.
What we see right now is this particular thermostat and its electronic control system is running in the cooling mode, and it's simple for a homeowner thinking through, oh, we were set for cooling, now we're going to be going into the heating season. I need to be able to come in and change from a cool mode to a heat mode now. At that point in time, the homeowner should put in the programming they need, if it's not already retained in the device, for what they're going to want their temperatures during the wintertime. And that's very simple for them to do. This particular control system would also remind them when the filter may need to be replaced, if they have a humidifier, when the humidifier has finally used enough water to where it needs the pad changed. Those are some things they can do. Some of the other controls that are out there are manual, and those would be more devices that they were going to have to make a setting for heating to cooling, things like that, along with fan operation. It's a manual switch that they may have.
And you're talking about the old round thermostat on the wall, and if you look closely at it, it'll say, you know, fan, auto, fan on,
correct.
Heat, cool. Just make sure that it's switched that way before the particular season, whether you're coming out of summer into fall, switching on to heat, or in late winter, early spring, you're switching it over to cool when we're going to get into the air conditioning needs.
Yep, exactly.
You know, one thing I noticed when you hit on this, on the programmable thermostat, it said cool, auto, fan only, and then off altogether. The fan only, I know from previous shows, you said it's a good idea with modern technology. Run that fan continuously.
Absolutely. We really recommend that. It's going to increase the comfort throughout the whole house. Also, what it's going to be doing is allowing the filtration to happen because that fan is running all the time. So you're having constant filtration of all the particulates that are in the air. And it's going to make the house cleaner. It's going to be better for the occupants, so they're not breathing as much dust, pollen, those kinds of things. So it's a great, great reminder there as well. So thanks for pointing that out.
Okay, and since we're talking, seasonal maintenance, seasonal operation of the entire system, what about high and low returns?
Yeah, high and low returns are the other one. We need to change those spring and fall. Basically, in the winter, you want to take the colder off the floor. So at that point, we would open the low returns. In the spring, we shut those so that we take the warm air off the ceiling, and that allows our operation of the system to react quicker and actually save the homeowner money, and it allows them to be more comfortable through doing those things. So those are two key points. Another one that we like to recommend is if you do have battery-operated smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, it's always a good idea to either do them in the spring or in the fall, but check or change those batteries if they're still battery powered.
It almost sounds like a good idea to just have a mental checklist or even put one on your fridge that says, hey, coming out of winter into summer, do these 5 things.
Right.
Coming out of summer into fall and winter when the heating season's coming in, do just what we had said, not only the filters and high and low returns, but I love your point on the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide sensors as well.
Yep. I mean, those are in there for us for life safety. We need those things. We have them in there for a reason. We need to make sure that they're going to operate.
Well, Larry, I have to be honest with you. When we walked downstairs early this morning before the technician arrived, I took one look at this furnace and said, it's brand new. You said outside it's a 2-year-old home. You're telling me that as a homeowner, even with a 2-year-old furnace, I should have a professional come out on an annual basis and clean and check it?
Ideally, yes, you should. These systems are as sophisticated today as your car. You do maintenance on your car, these need maintenance. And what we were able to observe the technician do today basically proved the various things that they do check to ensure that the operation of this device is going to be efficient and last a long time, and any predictive things that need changing can be taken care of on the spot. And I think the things that we saw that technician once he arrived today and what he was checking is peace of mind for we as a skeptical homeowner thinking, really, what are they going to do? Are they just going to be down here knocking on things?
Sure.
We saw him do an in-depth investigation of the furnace and how it's working. Let's walk through what happened there.
Sure.
He first turned on the thermostat to get it firing up for heat, came downstairs to save the consumer time, turned off the disconnect, and the first thing we did, he took a look at the filter and the blower assembly internally. Sure. The filter obviously needed to be changed, which he did that as a service through the clean and check.
Now, why is it so important to have a clean filter? I mean, once the filter's plugged, it's still allowing some air through, isn't it?
Well, it's some, and you hit the nail on the head there. You have a resistance that increases as it gets dirtier. So you have less and less airflow, which is now going to start causing harm to the system, but also increase your operating costs. So as a consumer, you're going to see your fuel bills go up because it's trying to push the heat out or the cooling out in the space, but you're resisting the ability for it to do that. And that's the reason we have to change those in a maintenance standpoint.
And so what you're saying is that if you have a clogged filter, it's making your system work harder, which can lessen the longevity, but also cost you more to operate?
Absolutely, it costs you more to operate. This particular furnace will basically add power to the motor to overcome the resistance a dirty filter will provide. The bad part is that costs the homeowner money. So we want to make sure that we change those frequently enough to ensure proper operation and to keep us as efficient as possible electrically.
Something a homeowner can do on a regular basis.
Exactly. Could be done by the homeowner or can be done by the professional, and you'd be surprised the amount that choose to have the professional just do that as a part of the service, because they have the proper filter for this particular system every time that they come out.
And let me tell you, from some of the past shows we've done, I've seen that the filter industry has really evolved, which is good news for the homeowner, because if you have seasonal allergies, you just want fresh air, good, clean indoor air quality, you want a good filter.
Right.
Then I noticed he went right to the blower motor.
Yeah, he went down inside the blower area, opened that up. He actually pulls the blower right out, so he can do an inspection of it, make sure the blower wheel's clean, and if it's not, what they will do is they'll actually clean the blower wheel. As life goes on, they do start to get dirty. In order to be able to move the proper airflow as economically as possible, they will clean those. In the case of a 2-year-old, they didn't need to do that. And then if you recall, he actually stuck his head in and looked up underneath, internal to basically the guts of the furnace, to see what the heat exchanger looked like.
Yeah, he was actually even using, I think, as a borescope. I mean, to actually look in there and see where he couldn't physically see.
Yep, so he actually did it both ways, with the scope, and then he actually did a visual internal. Today's furnaces produce condensate. We need to make sure that there isn't a physical leak in there, and that's what he's really looking for at that point.
Sure.
If the heat exchanger is starting to deteriorate, not that we would expect it on a newer system, but it could, what then do they need to do? If it's starting to leak, they need to then do proactive and or repair at that point while it's still under warranty, obviously. Sure. In this case, there's not a problem. But he was reassuring all of us that everything is operating as it should. From there, he put the blower back in, and then we started working on the upper section.
And before he put that in, I remember he actually spun the wheel itself, the barrel fan that's in there.
And that was a way to look at it to make sure that the fins are clean. Also, if there's any wobble, also he's listening, is there a bearing issue going on? What would that mean? The motor is going to start to fail. Another thing that they look at, and we saw a little bit later on in his diagnosis, was he did a current draw of what the electrical usage is of the system when it's back in operation. Okay. If the motor's not performing correctly, you're going to start to see a higher draw. That's an indicator to him again, proactively, what's going on here, so you don't come home as a homeowner to a cold house or a frozen house.
Sounds like you're trying to avoid a service call down the road. While you have him here, it's much more cost effective to repair anything proactively than it is down the road.
Correct.
If it fails.
Correct. The other things that he took a look at while he was under the cover, so to speak, is he took a look at the hot surface igniter. He did a measurement on that to determine its level of wear and tear. As they age, the resistance goes up. There's a certain number once it gets to, he knows if we let it go longer, eventually that's going to fail. Let's get that changed out now while it's a very inexpensive repair. It's not an emergency call on a night or a weekend or a holiday. It's going to be one of those proactively he took care of. There's also an ignition sensor that he proactively cleaned. So he removed that, cleaned it off, and put it back in before he test fired the system up. And what that's going to ensure is once the ignition lights, that proves that everything is burning correctly, and then the system will continue to operate as it should.
Sure. Another thing that I noticed, it took quite a bit of time for him to remove a plate so he could stick the borescope back in, and it looked like he was looking at something up here.
Yeah, the other thing that he did is he opened up an access hole to be able to see into the underside of the evaporator coil or our cooling coil. And he's looking for very similar things as we did in the lower section. Are there any evidences of leaks? Also, is it dirty? If it's dirty, in this case it wasn't, if it was, he would have to open that up and clean that coil. So they actually use a fluid to be able to clean the debris off of that. Again, we want to keep these as clean as possible to give the homeowner the best efficiency possible. That's the whole intent of this, and it increases the length and the longevity of the system operating correctly.
Sure.
The other thing, electrically, he checked all of the plug connections, and there's a condensate trap internal to the furnace. That is a maintenance item for him to take out physically. He went to the sink and cleaned it, brought it back down and put it back in. And what that's going to catch, you know how many bugs we get on the outside in the fall, the box elder bugs and all of those lovely little Asian beetles. Sometimes they'll come in through the PVC and get inside the furnace. They get washed down into that trap and plug it. Those are the things that they, as a preventative maintenance, will clean to ensure that that's clean for the fall and winter operations.
And what's the big deal if it gets plugged?
Well, if it gets plugged, now you have water backing up. Now the furnace won't operate correctly and it'll physically shut off because we can't drain that moisture away.
And again, another service call to have your tech come out. So
Exactly.
again, now I'm really starting to see the value, regardless of the age of your furnace,
Yeah.
the value that comes along with an annual clean and
Yeah,
change.
we think of those things as, well, really what's to go wrong, but there are really more and more things today than ever. How do you make sure that it's operating properly and efficiently? That's what we're working with.
Sure. Well, you know, as I was watching him go through all the checks and balances of the system, I mean, it was pretty intimidating to me. I wouldn't want to be in there monkeying around. It seems to be a high-tech device there. But at the end of the day, when I looked at it, that's a beautiful blue flame that he had.
Right, and that's the thing that they do. They do the visual inspections. They look at the burners, not just the blue flame, but if the burners are not set correctly and or if they're corroding due to moisture maybe in a very wet basement situation over the course of the summer, those are the things they want to inspect now because that can impinge the flame to where now you don't have a good clean burn. And we need to ensure that they're burning as efficiently and effectively as possible for the homeowner. So those are the things that they really look for.
Yeah, now that's on the furnace side of things. Since it was warm enough outside on a fall day, they were also able to do the air conditioning side of the system.
Exactly, and so you'll notice we did the heating side first, we warmed the house up, added load to the house so we could properly test the cooling side of the system. So then we made the switch to cooling, and the service technician could now properly test everything in that outdoor unit as if it was a hot summer day.
Sure, and that was quite a process. Let's go up and recap it.
Let's take a look. Stu, let's take a look. This happens to be the condensing unit sitting outdoors, and this is where we actually extract the heat from indoors and blow outside. You'll note it's up on a stand. This was built new construction. We're seeing this as a very typical installation now. They can come in, be able to get the installation complete without worrying about landscaping or things like that.
And when you say worry about landscaping, what can you possibly worry about as far as affecting an outdoor unit?
Well, good thing you asked. Obviously, in a new construction case, they don't have a lot of bushes yet.
Sure.
What we have seen where issues is a 15, 20-year-old job, they might plant a bush here. It starts to restrict the airflow into this unit. Now it needs to work harder to be able to cool the house. There's requirements of the distance that bushes and things like that need to stay away from the coil so they can work properly.
So is that something a homeowner can keep an eye on if they have a condensing unit that this is called?
Oh, yeah.
If there's plants around the outside, keep those pruned, say a couple feet
Exactly.
back away so
Yep.
that this doesn't have to work as hard to cool your house?
Right, that as well as also keep that in mind when, in this case, they may be putting in bushes later. Where should they put them so they don't create a problem that wasn't here at the start?
Okay. Now, I was surprised. He seemed to spend quite a bit of time out here. There must be more maintenance on the condensing unit than I was aware of.
Yeah, there is. When you look at it, this sits outside. It's drawing air in through it to operate in the cooling mode. Much like we saw downstairs with the filtration, with the coils we looked at down there, we do the same thing here. You can't put a filter on them. So what happens is the coils will eventually start to plug up with the debris that's in the air. Now we saw when they cleaned this, it had a lot of straw. We're looking around, where's that? Farm fields are a long ways away. It's when they put in the grass. They were running the cooling, and that got airborne because we're between two houses. A lot of movement of that. It ended up getting sucked in and started to plug up the airflow within the coil.
And so when I look at this, I see what appear to be a bunch of fins in there. When he took this outer shroud off, boy, it was covered. It looked like a lot of dandelion, maybe some cottonwood debris in there.
Exactly. All of those types of things that are airborne, when this is running, is going to get drawn into this and start to plug it. That's the biggest reason we need these things to be looked at. The other maintenance item that they do is they take a look at the current draw. They also put gauges on the system to ensure it's charged and operating correctly. The last thing that they look at is the current draw itself to ensure if there's a contactor in there, is the contactor starting to pit, which is going to give us issues within the unit. They can change that as a maintenance item. They'll do the same thing for the capacitors. Much like we measured on the furnace side to test the life of the hot surface, they do the same thing here for those electrical components.
Again, preventative maintenance is the key, and what blew me away was I looked from the outside here, fins don't look too bad. The minute he took this off, it was so thick with debris, and then he used a nice little, it didn't seem like a high pressure hose to clean it all off.
No, use a little portable water pack that they can use in case they don't have hoses available. It's less inconvenient for the homeowner. And that way they can come in and clean it. If they have to clean the coil, he has coil cleaner right in that pack, so it can actually suds up. In this case, he didn't need to do that. He just washed the loose debris off.
Sure, and now is that something a homeowner can do? I mean, it looked to me it's just hosing it off.
Well, you can. I mean, if there's some big stuff on the outside, they can hose that off. What you don't want to ever do, though, is let's say down the road I was cleaning the house. Hey, there's a little debris on there with a pressure washer, and you hit these fins. You're going to start to bend those fins, and now you've hurt the system worse than trying to help it. That's the biggest concern, because once you bend them, they're going to be restrictive until they're fin combed back out, which is a much bigger service call for that homeowner to actually contend with the dealer.
I know a lot of people that have used a pressure washer on their system, and I bet, unbeknownst to them, they were doing way more harm than good, is what you're saying, because those are pretty delicate fins in there, and just high pressure water can do more harm than good to the system.
Exactly. They're like an aluminum foil, a little bit heavier gauge, so they do bend very, very easily, and that's what you want to be careful of.
Well, what I'm taking away from this is September is a great time to have a furnace/air conditioning clean and check, because the weather's warm enough that they can not only do the furnace on the inside, but they can also test the air conditioning components on the outside.
Yep. Also, that is usually when they have the most time in their schedule to be able to meet your schedule, to be able to come out and do the clean and checks at the right time. So it's less inconvenience for the homeowner. It also fits within their schedules as well. And proactively, if they do find, let's say assume this is a 15, 20-year-old system, and there's mechanical things wrong that they finally determine, hey, it's probably a good time to change or replace, they have the time to do it then, where it's not an emergency and it's more economical replacement at that point for the homeowner, generally speaking.
Well, Larry, that is awesome information, and we covered an awful lot of ground on today's show. I mean, so much so that I gotta believe a lot of homeowners might struggle to comprehend everything and remember it when their need arises. And let's take the situation where I come home, it's 10 below zero, January night. Oh no, my furnace must not be working because it's cold in the house. I'm going to be panic stricken. What is the advice you could give someone?
The advice, first off, obviously the list we went through, it's going to be tough to remember it all. Ideally, call your heating contractor, a reputable one. The first thing they're going to do is cover the obvious with you over the phone. Make sure you've got the thermostat turned on. Make sure if it's been a windy, wintry night, did the intake exhaust outside get covered up with snow, so that you can walk out and take a look at that. The last thing they want to do is come out here, borrow your shovel to clean that out, and then hand you a bill. They want you to be satisfied with their work, and they want to help you as quick as possible to be able to get you the heat back on. It might have been as simple as the kids were playing downstairs and they flipped the disconnect by the furnace. Just by accident, that simple on-off switch created the cold situation.
And you know, the beauty of that advice, call your contractor, you said. Build a relationship with a reputable contractor, do the annual clean-in checks, preventative maintenance is the key, and you're going to lessen the likelihood of that scenario that I just said, coming home from work on a cold winter evening and your furnace isn't working.
Exactly. Those are the things that they're going to work with you on, and they want you happy, and they're not there that they want to bill you. They want to be able to make sure that the things that they provided, you're getting good service from.
Well, it's been awesome today. I appreciate you coming on today's show and sharing this great advice with our viewers.
Thanks. It was my pleasure.
The preceding was a sponsored program, furnished by the Today's Home Remodeler television network.